أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته Jazakallah khair everyone जो जिसने भी I mean who all have removed their time and have come here. Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward you all. So I hope कि whatever was done yesterday in yesterday's session you have a little set that, I mean you have that as background inshallah. So based on that inshallah we will start off with our modern session today, modern history inshallah. So any doubts from yesterday's session also, inshallah, we can discuss after today's session. Both, even today's doubts and yesterday's doubt together, we can inshallah discuss about it. So first, today, the first topic that I'll be discussing is the claims made by Jews. So it is important for us to understand what are their claims so that we have an answer for it, right? So the first claim is that first claim made by Jews to today's Jews is that they take up Holy Bible. They take up Holy Bible in general to legitimize their claim, and it is a verse. There's a verse in Bible, in Old Testament in particular, to which says that according to Book of Genesis in Old Testament in chapter 15, verse number 18, it mentions. On the same day, the Lord made covenant with Abraham, saying, "To your descendants, I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river of Euphrates." So they take this verse and say that God Himself has given this land to them. So this is how they claim the right over this land, taking up this verse. So what is important to understand here is that this is purely a theological perspective. Their claim is not a political perspective, but it is a theological. See, they are taking their Old Testament, they are taking a religious scripture and they're saying that God has given this land to them because they do consider themselves as descendants of Abraham. But they forget that there are other descendants as well. Like Ibrahim alayhi salam had two sons. So Ale Ishaq are also there and Ale Ismail are also there, right? So the Arabs are the descendants of Ismail alayhi salam. So anyways, this is a separate discussion, but yes, what I am trying to prove here is that this people, I mean the world sees this conflict, of course the Palestinian conflict, as a political perspective. But the world sees this as a political conflict, right? But this is a purely theological perspective. Matlab, whatever they are doing, what the claims they make and everything, because if it was a political conflict then they would have settled down in any other land in the world, but they chose this land because they have the connection here, right? So this is something religious, theological, but the world gives this as name of politics. But no, this is, of course the politics is involved to some extent, but more than politics, this is something religious, something theological. Okay, so this I wanted to address this claim. Then second claim is that, like I said yesterday, they say that they have ancestry right on this land because their ancestors have ruled this land in the history. But yesterday we saw the history, right? We saw the whole sequence, everything, and we saw that like there were so many other ethnic groups that penetrated, who ruled for a longer time the than the time of Israelites. So this claim is also not credible. Okay, so I wanted to start off with this. Okay, now let me start off with giving you a brief introduction to modern history of Jews. Yesterday we learned on ancient history, right? Now we are going to learn about the modern history. Till yesterday, we saw that they were expelled from the land of Palestine by the Roman Empire, and then, in fact, not only expelled, they were also they had put ban on their entry. So now I also said that that was the time they were scattered all over the world and they were in a state of diaspora. So let us discuss now about their state of diaspora when they were scattered all over the world. Let us discuss what all they had to go through. So yes, this is something which we cannot disagree on, is that history of Jews has lots of ups and downs, and especially with the modern era, they were victims. They did face a lot of problems by the Christian community, about which we will talk, inshallah. So like I said, they were expelled, and they were stateless till 1948, right? So during this time, they suffered at the hands of Christian community, and the only place where they lived at peace were in the Muslim lands, that was owned by Ottoman Empire, of course, that time back then. So, I mean, the only people who gave them the rights were Muslim rulers, because that's the beauty of Islam. Uh, they just had to pay jizya, the taxes, and they had their full rights and full safety to practice their religion. None of the Jews, I want you all to remember this, none of the Jews that lived in Ottoman Empire said they wanted a separate Jewish homeland, because I mean, anything as such, they had no problem as such, because they were giving their full rights. They were getting everything they wanted to, and they were living happily. They were completely fine, happy, and content in the Ottoman under the Ottoman rule. Where they were suffering was where they were facing problem was in the European cities. Okay, that is outside the borders of Muslim Empire. In the European cities, the Jews suffered greatly. So now let us discuss about anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism can be defined as hostility to or discrimination against Jews. In simple words, if I have to put it, it means hatred towards Jews. So now the main thing I want to tell you is that the Jews and Christians, these two communities had a long standing hostility, had a long time enmity towards each other on religious fronts. Okay, the main reason behind this enmity was religion, that was also connected with religion. And it is believed, and it's true, that a Jewish man called Pontius Pilate, he was the man who was responsible behind the crucifixion of Jesus. And this event, one of the main event for Christians, and some other events, similar events, made Christians hate Jews to an extent that they were persecuted and massacred throughout the history. Who were persecuted and massacred? Jews. Yes, the Jews were persecuted and massacred throughout the history by the Christian community. This is important to understand. I mean, the friendship that we witness today, this never existed before. Forget about friendship. They didn't even have a cordial relationship. All they had was enmity. These two communities were in constant fight, constant enmity with each other. So this friendship which we are witnessing today of US, of Israel, this is something strange. This is something different from the history, because history hasn't spoken about their friendship ever. Okay. So if you can just see these pictures. Okay, so in these pictures, like you can see, one problem Jews faced a lot was, it was not that they were just persecuted or killed. One more thing was that these Jews were forced to live in ghettos, and the ghettos means it was a complete different land for them, allotted for them. It was a poor land, and it was just like a prison. Okay, they had to live here, absolutely cut off from rest of the society, absolutely cut off from rest of the world. They weren't allowed to mingle with the other communities. So basically, they were treated as untouchables, and this is really inhumane. They were treated really in inhumane manner. So, and the condition in ghettos was extremely pathetic. The ghettos were overcrowded. They lacked basic necessities. They faced, I mean, these Jews, they faced social exclusion, this kind of social exclusion for few centuries, for few years. And today we see the same people who were once victims of ghetto life and all of that. Today they are doing the same thing. Now they are on the different side of history. Now that rather than being victims, they are the oppressors now. But yes, they were victims once upon a time. Then, like I said, they lived peacefully only in Muslim lands. They suffered greatly in European countries, and they were forced to live in ghettos. Okay, so this was their ghetto life, and this was their introduction to modern history. Now comes the Haskalah movement. So, like I said, that they were facing social exclusion for few years. Later on, after few centuries, probably in 18th century, the condition of Jews started changing in some parts of Europe when some Europeans had become modern, liberated, and educated. They started ignoring this anti Semitism. They started ignoring the hatred towards Jews. They understood that depriving the whole community of their basic rights is wrong. So now Jews were allowed to step out of their ghetto life and participate in social structure. This happened before World War I, and I mean, this happened probably in 18th century. So the anti-Semitism, the hatred that they were facing once upon a time was ignored, not all over the world, but it was ignored in few European countries, especially countries like America, where people were getting educated and they understood that depriving someone of their basic rights is just very wrong. Okay, so, and it was during this time when they got a chance to come out, they gave their 100%. They started to prove their talent in every field. They started contributing in all the fields like science, technology. Who started to contribute? The Jews. Because now that they've got a chance to come out of ghettos and prove themselves, right? So they're trying to give everything, contributing in every field. So that contribution did benefit them. And this was the time, during this time, after they even contributed towards the country, and they also established themselves economically, and some were even successful in gaining political positions. So you see the whole reformation. I mean, they were in ghettos, just one chance to prove themselves, and they did their best. They came out and they did their best. They proved that yes, they can contribute and they can be good people. They can be uh, beneficial for the particular country they lived in. Okay, so now, like this, talking about Haskalah movement, there were two groups in Jews now. The one group was enjoying equal rights, and other group was still leading a very bad life, still in pathetic life in ghettos, inside the ghettos. So, like I said, the ghetto life, the anti Semitism wasn't ignored all over the world, but in some countries like America, Russia, but there were some other countries as well who still had that hatred and still continued their process of anti Semitism. So, now, like I said, there were two groups. One were enjoying the luxuries, enjoying the civil equal rights, and one were in pathetic situation. So the former group, that is the elite class Jews, I mean the ones who had gained some high political position, who had gained money and everything. These people, especially they were especially in America, in country like America. So these people, the elite class Jews, they came together and they used to conduct conferences where they compared their own luxuries with pathetic living condition of their brothers. I mean, you see, they were, even though they were enjoying the luxuries, even though they were good, their life was good, they weren't content with it. The Jews, because they were thinking about their brothers in faith who were still suffering, who were still victims of anti-Semitism. But and I think the history of Jews, we can relate a lot with today's situation of Muslims. Like today, we see there are few Arabs who are enjoying the luxuries, whilst there's a Levant region, that is Syria, Lebanon, of course, Palestine. I mean, this region is they are in worse situation. They are refugees. They've lost so many things due to wars and all of that. So, I mean, there's something similar, but the difference is those people who had the power, the Jews back then, weren't content with their power or luxuries. They wanted their hearts. I mean, they had that. They had those feelings that they couldn't let down their brothers, so they used to get together, and they used to conduct conferences. I think today, even in the Muslim world, conferences are being conducted like OIC and all of that. But the difference is the Jews, after conducting the conferences, they used to work on it. They didn't just used to. I mean, they were not just words but actions. So today, we lack actions. That's the difference between us and them. So anyways, coming back to the topic, this people, they used to conduct conferences, and in conference, what was important part is that they did Jewish enlightenment. And when they saw that their brothers were suffering still in the ghetto life, this made them realize that there was an urgent need of Jewish enlightenment. What kind of Jewish enlightenment? It was for to make their own homeland. Okay, they did try out a lot of things to make situation better for Jews, but later they started to promote a thought widely amongst all the Jews, that was to work towards having a nation of their own, a Jewish nation. So even a kid back then, he knew that they need to work towards this cause. So so if we talk about Zionism if we will discuss Zionism now, but this Zionism has its roots going back to Haskalah movement. That is why uh, Haskalah movement is something to be remembered. Yes, now talking about Zionism. Zionism can be described as a movement in late 19th century which that aimed to establish a Jewish nation and a homeland for Jews, not in any other place but in the land of Palestine. Okay, and Theodor Herzl, he was the father of Zionism, and I wanted to tell something about him. He was a journalist and he was a secular Jew. Okay, he and his followers were secular Jews. They did not practice the laws of Judaism, but they used their religion as an excuse to take over the land of Palestine. So now, talking about Theodor Herzl, he knew to work on his plan, he needs to pull major world power on his side to collaborate with him in the Zionist cause. So at first, you know what he thought? What he did? He actually bribed Sultan Abdul Hamid too. If you want to know who Sultan Abdul Hamid too is, okay, Zionism, a working model of, let us discuss about the offer to Sultan Abdul Hamid II. In 1901, when Palestine used to come under Ottoman Empire, Theodor Herzl, he contacted Sultan Abdul Hamid and gave him a proposal that Jews would pay off foreign debts of Ottoman Empire. I mean, pay off his foreign debts. During the time of Sultan Abdul Hamid II, Ottoman Empire had become really weak, and he was one of the sultan. He was one of the Khalifa who was trying really hard to bring back the glory of Ottoman Empire, but it was very difficult for him. So, because during that time he was dealing with the British colonialism and all of that stuff, so it was very difficult for him. And it was this time they thought that they will bribe him. So they told him that they will pay off all his foreign debts and they will provide him all the support he needed to strengthen his empire. But in return, what he did was okay, in return, what they wanted, the Jews, in return, what they wanted was they wanted the ban that was there, that ban to be lifted up, and they wanted him to allow the immigration of them in land of Palestine, and they also wanted Palestine to be considered as a Jewish national home. So of course that was not possible. Khalifa Sultan Abdul Hamid too, he rejected. So what they did was next they tried to contact Germany, and they asked Germany, since Germany was in very good terms with the Ottoman Empire. He was an ally of Ottoman Empire, so they said Germany to go and talk to Sultan Abdul Hamid too about reconsidering this offer. And during this time, Sultan Abdul Hamid says one thing which is really famous now. That is, he said, "I will not sell even an inch of this land because it does not belong to me, but to my people." So this was the importance of having a ruler, having a strong ruler. So talking about Sultan Abdul Hamid, he ruled from 1876 to 1909, and he was the last wall of resistance against colonialism. And yeah, I just wanted to add on one more thing about him. Yes, I wanted to say that from the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh till 1922, Islam was constantly, there was a system of Khalifa, a ruler. Okay, so the world today we are living in is a modern world. We have different countries, different kings, and all of that. But till 1922, Islam had a system. It still has, but unfortunately, we are living in modern times, in different times. So I'm just talking about the history from the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anh till 1922. Islam did have a system of Khalifa, and there were ongoing Khalifas till 1922. Of course, sometimes came history where in the history where there would be three Khalifas, there would be two Khalifas, or three Khalifas fighting each other. But the caliphate system did exist, and it did exist even if there was some problem, but there were just three to two Khalifas that would have problems. But overall, Islam did have the system of Khalifa till 1922, and Ottoman Empire, after the fall of Ottoman Empire, this system completely did went did go and never came back. Okay, so now let us discuss the main event, World War One. Okay, just let me tell you that after being turned down by the Ottomans and Germany, Zionists' last hope was Britain. And on the other hand, Britain also wanted to put an end to this caliphate rule. They were, in fact, conspiring to put an end to this caliphate rule because they knew as long as caliphate exists, Muslims will always be united as one unified territory. So their dream of ruling over the world would not succeed. The dream of Britain. And talking about Zionists, even they knew that as long as caliphate exists, it's not possible for them to get their hands on the land of Palestine. So this both Britain and Zionists, they both allied with each other. Both had same goal, that was to eradicate caliphate rule. Both had same goals, but they had different benefits. So what was the goal? The goal was to put an end to the caliphate rule. So now let us talk about the one of the most tragic event in the history of Islam, and of course in the history of Palestine, that is World War One, which consequences we are still suffering. I think every problem in the Muslim world today links back to World War One, because that was the beginning of the downfall of Ummah. And now let us see, World War One was between Allied forces versus Central Power. Allies are Belgium, France, Great Britain, Italy, Japan, Russia, US. On the other side were Central Powers like Austria, Hungary, Bulgaria, Germany, and Ottoman Empire. This Austria-Hungary Empire, it doesn't exist. The Ottoman Empire doesn't exist. So the results of the World War One were Britain, its allies won, and the Central Powers were defeated. And of course, the Ottoman Empire was on the wrong side of the history. And in the world after the World War One, Ottoman Empire comes to an end completely. So basically, before World War One, Ottoman Empire was on verge of decaying. Like many important lands were taken off by Britain, like Egypt and all were taken off even before the World War One. So, like I said, it was very weak. It was very weak. And what World War One did was a total collapse of empire. So, empire officially ended in 1922. Uh, yes, it entered into the war in 19 not okay, I'm sorry. It entered into the yeah in 1914, and it ended. The Ottoman Empire completely collapsed in officially collapsed in 1922. So with Ottoman Empire, Muslim Caliphate system also came to an end, because this is the first time in the history. I mean, before, whenever a Muslim empire ended, some new would pop up and claim to be the new Khalifa, like when Umayyads were Umayyads came to an end, Abbasids came up. And when Abbasids were gone, the other group came up. So this is how it was. But this is the first time, it was the first time in the Muslim history that we accepted the new rule, new world order. That was, we submitted to the modern world order. And with the Ottoman Empire, the Caliphate system also came to an end. Okay, so now we are living in different times, completely we are living in a world that's submitted to the modern rules. Okay, so now I would also wanted to I also want to add why two reasons, two main reasons why Ottoman Empire lost. Number one was that they weren't very well versed with the latest technology and equipment. This is something I mean, this is something we need to understand, and we are in a similar situation because we do not have access to latest technology. I mean, we people are just in living in some other world. And today, when we talk about boycotting, we have very less alternatives because Muslims haven't been in the fields where they could produce something or where they could manufacture something. Even if they do, I don't know if it's, I mean, that's not worldwide. Probably it is only stuck to their own country. So we do lack the same quality even today. And that was the main reason why such a big Ottoman Empire that lasted for centuries came to an end. And number two, the second reason is that betrayal from our own people. That was some young Turks, they betrayed those young Turks who didn't like the Sharia law. They allied with Britain, and even some Arabs too allied with the Britain in World War I. And this is, to be honest, this is what the history is all about. We can't hide anything here. It should be as transparent as it is. So yes, it is true that the betrayals were from the Ummah. One was the young Turks, and the others were Arabs, namely Hashemites and Souths. But you know, the Britain, if you have idea about the Indian history, what they did was divide and rule. The same thing, British played the old tactic there, divide and rule policy. So they promised the Arabs power if they betray the Ottomans. They went to Arabs, they said that you should be having the power over the Haramain, over the holy lands like Makkah and Medina. Why are you letting the outsiders, that is Ottomans, rule you? And this Ottomans and Souths, that is these two people were actually, they were in civil war. The Souths weren't happy with the Aqidah of Ottomans, and there were the problems, civil wars were going on. But what Britain did was they completely, made use of that, and they were successful in brainwashing the Souths, the Hashemites, the Young Turks, and to betray the Ottomans, to be against the Ottomans. So this is when the tables turn. Now coming back to the topic. Zionists were promised the land of Palestine by Britain if they helped them in World War I. So see this, when you see the chart here, it's Britain, it's the Allies versus Central Power. But Britain didn't just have this allies. Britain, there were many other people who supported Britain in the war, like the Zionists, like the Arabs, like the Young Turks. So you see that. So no doubt why they won the World War I. Okay. Okay. So now let us talk about the consequences of World War I and how the state of Israel come into existence. On 2nd November 1917, something strange happens. Uh, Even before the results of World War I were drawn, when like Palestine was still a part of Ottoman Empire, James Atho Balfour, he signs a letter saying that on behalf of entire British cabinet, he is giving off Palestine to the Jews. And many historians have commented saying that how can a donor donate something in charity what does not belong to them, right? So Palestine, when in 1917, was still a part of Ottoman Empire, but they were sure that it's going to come to an end. So even before the results came out officially, they did this. So uh, this declaration is called as Balfour Declaration, and we don't consider this to be legal at all. So this is James Arthur Balfour, and this was the letter he signed in November 2nd, 1917, saying that he's giving off the entire land of Palestine to Jews. Like he had the right over that land, like like the people, like the Palestine was just a barren land without any people. They never thought that if we are going to give a community this land, then what about the ones who are already staying there? So, inshallah, we'll talk about that. So now what happens was, after World War I, Britain and France, they seized the authority to shape the West Asia. They cut the okay. They've cut the one unified territory into such small pieces like Bahrain, Iraq, Saudi, UAE, Syria, Lebanon, Qatar, Kuwait, etc., etc. So maybe they had in their mind that if we cut and divide them into such small pieces, then they can never be a unified territory ever again. And yes, they succeeded in their hidden agendas, just like they planned. It is going on. It's going just like that. So, and Asham, if we talk about Asham, that was also split up. Like Asham was Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. So they split up this Asham into so many pieces, like Lebanon, Jordan. Now they're just left with Palestine. So now coming to the main part is that all of the countries were considered independent and were granted freedom. like they promised the Souths, they promised the Hashemites, saying that they would give them powers. Like, just look at their cunning attitude, look at the conspiracies and plans. They promised Souths and Hashemites as well, saying that they would give the power. But after World War I, the Hashemite king, he declared himself as Khalifa, but the Souths came in and they defeated him and they took over the land, and they have the land till today. But this Hashemite, he was constantly complaining to the British, saying that you did betray me. Like, you told me you will be giving me the power. So now they were confused. So they were like, okay, now you just take off Jordan. What they did was they divided Palestine, and they made Palestine now small, very small, and the eastern part was made it as they made it as Trans-Jordan, and they gave it off to this Hashemites. So this Hashemites, till today, they have the power over Jordan, and I think they're happy and content. So just for small pieces, Ummah went in a toss. I mean, anyways, so this was Balfour Declaration. So now what was I talking? Yeah, I was telling that all the countries were granted independence and they were given their freedom, except the land of Palestine. So, because we are focusing on Palestine, let us stick to this, because history talks about many other events as well. So, inshallah, some other day, if we have a session related on that, we will talk those events in detail. But coming back to Palestine, yes, all the countries of West Asia were granted freedom, and they made their own government and started working. The like different countries started working. They had their local governments and all of that. But Palestine was a country, was a land that was not given freedom. And why? In fact, Palestine was made as an international zone. They had no clear government. Why? The reason, if anyone knows. So now what happens was, Palestinian Arabs were in constant fight with British army to withdraw their troops. The Britain, like I said, they didn't give independence to the land of Palestine. They stayed in Palestine. Their armed forces stayed in Palestine. And these Palestinians, they wanted independence when they saw around them that the others have gotten their independence and others have formed their own local governments and their countries are at ease. They wanted the same thing. So Palestinians were, they were in constant fight with the British army, saying to to withdraw their troops and to grant them freedom. But Britain stayed. Britain didn't leave. Why? Because they wanted to fulfill their promise that was made to Zionist Jews. What promise? The Balfour Declaration. They wanted to work on this. So now, under the protection of this British army, thousands of Jews started migrating to the land of Palestine. And Palestinian Arabs could sense something fishy. They had understood that this was something more than just migration. So Palestinians were agitated and they started retaliating against the immigration. So there's a common myth that spread right all over. This myth is spread all over, saying that Palestinians gave shelter to Jews, and after Holocaust, they gave them shelter, and in return, Jews backstabbed them. I think this is something very common, and our Muslims know this is. Our Muslims think this is what the history is, but this is not true at all. If you go back and read the history, you will find out that Palestinians were resisting from day one. They were against this immigration. Um, you see, how could they decide to give shelter or not? Because they themselves were stuck in the hands of Britain. They were in fact fighting with Britain. They were telling Britain to withdraw their troops, but Britain's armed forces were in Palestine. So you really think they had the freedom to give shelter, to decide whether to give shelter to someone or not? Of course not. Of course not. So they didn't have their own independent government. The Britain armed forces were there in the land till 1947. So probably this myth which says that Palestinians gave shelter to Jews, it's maybe it's come from the West, where they are trying to hide the role of so-called Great Britain in this whole scenario. They know that if they leak out the true information, then of course the Britain will be held responsible for the situation the Palestinians today are in. So okay, now the situation had become very difficult. Okay, it had been very difficult. There were constant fights between, because like I said, thousands of Jews started migrating under the protection of Britain army. So after they did migrate, the fight started right from then. Right from that time. The Palestinian Arabs and the Zionists both were in constant fight, and Britain couldn't control them anymore. They began to feel weak, and it is now when they decided to withdraw their troops in late 1947. So what they do is they surrendered the land to its locals, that is the Arabs, and they wanted to prove themselves as if they were giving off independence to Palestine. So can someone sense the hypocrisy behind this? After complicating everything, after throwing the Zionists forcefully on Palestinians, after making the land of Palestine an unnegotiable controversy that until today, they just washed off their hands and got away with the situation. And in fact, they went to the locals of Palestine, and they said, "Now we are giving you freedom." Like they did a great job by doing that, because they had messed everything up. They complicated everything. So, of course, whenever the history of Palestine is talked about, Britain cannot escape. UK cannot escape. The so-called Great Britain does has a big role to play in this whole whole mess that is going on till now. Okay, so yes, this is Balfour Declaration. And coming to let us talk about UN, what UN resolution is now. Okay, now after the withdrawal of Britain, British from Palestine, who were left on the land of Palestine now? Of course, the Zionists and the Palestinian Arabs, right? And these Zionists were ruthless. They were going on taking over farms and villages and demolishing entire communities. They killed thousands, and thousands ran for their life living behind Palestine. So since there was no Khalifa, there was no local government, there was no real power at all to stop this Zionists from their oppression. So now Palestinians themselves rose up. They had to rise up, and they began to resist and fight in self-defense. So this clashes, so-called clashes, and of course the bloodshed of Palestinians at a larger level became a hot topic across globe, and now UN situation became obvious. So now the so-called Great UN, the peacemaker, enters into the scene as if it was never into the scene. So it comes in as peacemakers, and by putting on their mask of neutrality, now it listens to both the parties, and they propose a two-state solution called UN Resolution 181. So today, there are few Muslims as well who say that it's the problem Palestinians are facing today is because of them, because they were the ones who rejected UN Resolution 181. So I think those Muslims who talk like this need to go back and have their facts checked. So inshallah, let us talk about this, about the UN resolution. Let us talk about what was that plan. In this UN Resolution 181, also called as two-state solution, the 56% of land was given to Israel, who had just come, okay, who had the Zionist Jews who had just arrived, and 44% of land was given to Muslims and Christians who lived there from decades. It's fine, okay. Since now they have become war spoils, Palestinians have nothing else rather to surrender, and that's also fine. But things are different. It is not as as simple as just the two-state solution looks like. So we will talk more about the plight of Palestinians. But yes, 44% of the land was given to them who were living there for decades. And one more injustice was when they were giving up this lands, the US, the UN, when they were proposing this resolution 181, and of course they did a mistake giving off 56% to Israel. But okay, we understand that they have a very strong friendship. But the thing was, whilst giving off the lands, good cities like Tel Aviv with good water bodies and the lands that had good agricultural structures were given to Israel, while Palestinians were left with barren lands with no proper water bodies, no proper agricultural lands, and all of that. So even while dividing the lands, they did injustice. So they did injustice to a larger extent, and the Arab world woke up now. The Arab world, not just Palestinians, but during this time, Arab world also woke up. Okay, I just want to show you this. So this was UN Resolution 181. Green color, this green color is Israel, and the orange part is given to Palestine. And the Jerusalem, of course, this is something nobody wants to let go on. So they made Jerusalem as an international part. So Jerusalem wasn't given to anyone, but later on things change. This UN resolution doesn't work. So okay, what happens after UN resolution was that Arab world woke up, and they couldn't take the injustice that happened with their brothers. So this frustration turned into a battle where all the Arab nations united. This was the very first battle, by the way. And all the Arab nations united and fought against Zionists. But to our astonishment, so you see, the Zionists were very little, and the Arab nation, of course, Muslim is majority, but they were defeated. That was the result of this battle. The whole of Arab nations were defeated. You know why? Because the fact was that Arabs were not just fighting with the Zionists; they were also fighting with America and other European countries indirectly. I mean, they didn't know. Those people didn't come into the war directly, but they backed the Zionists. They completely backed the Zionists, especially US and even UK to some extent. They helped the Zionists with all the latest and advanced weaponries, just as they are doing today. So just as they're helping the IOF in destroying Gaza. So they did the same thing back then. The very first battle in which Arabs were defeated. Yes, Arab nations. And that was the first and the last time when the whole of the Arabs, the Muslim countries united. That this was the first and the last. They united and they were defeated. And this battle is called a Nakba, the catastrophe. It was a disaster for Muslim nation, whilst for Zionists, they consider this as a war of independence for them. Okay. Yes. And Nakba. So between 1947 to 1949, 700,000 Palestinians were violently expelled from their homes and were forced to become refugees. Over a span of 2 years, this violent crackdown resulted in 78% of entire territory falling into the hands of Zionists. So you see how they expanded their illegal settlements. It was through violence. And after the wars, yeah, so these are the Arab Israeli wars, Al Nakba, the catastrophe. Then comes Suez Crisis, the Six-Day War, that is called Al Naksa, Yom Kippur War, Lebanon War 1, Lebanon War 2. All of these wars had the same result. Uh, the Zionists were victorious and the Arabs were defeated. But of course, Al Nakba was the only war where all the Arab nations united together. But after that, the wars were just fought between, like, for example, if we talk about Naksa, Six-Day War, Egypt, Jordan, like small countries. No, they didn't unite again. So, like Lebanon War 1, it was only Lebanon and Palestinians were fighting. It was like that. Okay, but the results, what is important is to know the results. Muslims were defeated, okay, and the Zionists were victorious in all the wars, in all the battles. And after battles, what happened was intifadas, Oslo Accords, but nothing really proved to be beneficial for the Palestinians. Intifadas means, yani, the Palestinians themselves, they knew now that they lost hope, because many of the countries like Egypt and all, they surrendered and they started accepting Israel as a country. So it was like a backstab. It was like a backstabbing thing for Palestinians. They felt really bad, and they accepted that now there's nobody else going to come to them to help them. So they took it on themselves and they started doing the best possible things they could do from their own, like intifadas. They started boycotting things, and like they started doing all the civil disobedience, like they didn't agree with the Zionists. I think this is something that's still going on. And even there's something called Oslo Accord, where they signed a peace treaty. The president of Israel and president of Palestine signed a peace treaty, but that also didn't really work out. It was nothing more than a piece of paper. It's just like ink spilled on a piece of paper. That's all it was all about. So the president now, as of now, the president is Mahmoud Abbas, but Palestinians consider him to be a puppet in hands of Zionist Israel, because he doesn't really take any stand on his own. He follow the Palestinians say that he follows the orders of Zionists. It's they who have made this president. Yani, they are just faces, but the actual rulers are the Zionists. Okay, now coming to the important point. Just a second. Yes. So this is West Bank, and opposite to it is Gaza. Okay. What is important for us to understand is the people of Gaza cannot go to West Bank, and people of West Bank cannot travel to Gaza, except in very rare occasions. Like they will have to do a lot of they will have to take a lot of permits, and like they just don't allow them to travel, even though both are Palestinian territories. So these are the actually this is the present day map of Palestine, and this West Bank and Gaza Strip are the present territory of Palestine. But you see who controls it. Even though they have a so-called president, but I mean, it's of no use, because the people of Gaza cannot travel to West Bank, neither West Bank can travel to Gaza Strip. So this is how the Zionist Jews have. This is how they have made borders and whatnot. So we can say that this two, the West Bank and the
So am I not audible?
I'm so sorry. From where am I not audible, sister?
From the last slide. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm
Just a
so sorry.
minute back. Just a minute.
Even more?
No, no. Just this slide,
Okay,
not
okay,
this
okay.
one. This one. Yeah. Few seconds
Okay.
before you shift to the another one, and from there you got it muted.
What did I say last?
That I don't remember.
Okay, let me start off from here. So this is the present day map of Palestine. So West Bank and Gaza Strip are part of Palestinian territory. But what is important to understand is that people of Gaza cannot enter West Bank, and people of West Bank cannot travel to Gaza. Like, even though they are both are Palestinian territories, they cannot travel to Gaza or West Bank. They can't do that except for in very rare cases. So you see who, even though this is Palestinian territory, you see who actually controls the Zionists. Of course, they have created borders, they have constructed borders where there are strict rules. So inshallah, we will talk about the problems of people of West Bank and Gaza Strip. I can say that this two, even though they sail in the same boat, like they both are part of Palestinian territory, even though they're sailing in the same boat, but they have slightly different sufferings. So now let us look at their sufferings, starting off with the problems faced by the people of West Bank. So one problem is that people of West Bank have to encounter the IOF, this is the Israeli occupation forces, on a daily basis. On a daily basis, this is the worst part faced by by the people of West Bank. See, and the things I'm talking about is history. I mean, today the situation is different. That the IOF have already entered the Gaza Strip, but before it was not like that. IOF couldn't enter Gaza. It was after few years that they have done this. Okay, so now, so talking about West Bank, they do have to encounter the IOF on a daily basis, but that was not the case with Gaza. Of course, after October 7th, things have changed, but before October 7th, the IOF, the army, couldn't go into Gaza. So one relief for them was that they wouldn't have to encounter this army on a daily basis. Next thing is that no value for life in West Bank. There's no value for life. Innocents being killed by IOF attacks anywhere, anytime. There are places like Jenin and many other places, especially Hebron, where all of a sudden the IOF starts off their attacks, and in those attacks, anytime, anywhere, any innocent can be killed, and they are least apologetic towards it. They just don't care about it because they don't care about the life of Palestinians, and they only care is about their power, their advanced weaponries, and all of that. So they are very confident about it. Oh, subhanallah. So this is something that I really want to share. uh More than 30,000 young men. The plight I'm talking about is from West Bank. I didn't come to Gaza yet. I'm just talking about West Bank. So in West Bank, more than 30,000 young men, not only men, but also women. And not only women, also children are behind Israeli prison from, subhanallah, more than 30,000. So majority of them, they are just arrested basis on suspicion. And this was Isra. Actually, I made this presentation almost a month ago, but recently she was released after many years inside the prison. She was released just recently when there was the exchange of the prisoners going on. At that time, Isra was released. She is Isra, who was, she was all fine, but all of a sudden there was some problem with her car, and her car exploded and she got all the burns. But the Zionist said that claimed, falsely accused her that she had come to destroy them. She had come to blow herself, and like she had come to commit the suicide bombing. That was a false accusation. She was in fact asking for help. She was begging them to take her to the doctor, that she's burning. But Zionists are there, like they are as they are. So if you see, this boy is Ahmad Manasra. He was arrested in 2014, and he was just 14 years old. 14 years old. They said that he was he had come to stab the soldier, IOF soldier. He had come to stab IOF soldier, and that is why they arrested him and they have not let him out still. It's 2003 recently, and this boy is facing a lot of psychological problems, and and they don't provide medication or any medical help needed. So he is alone. They don't let him talk to the other prisoners. Imagine, he has spent his childhood in the prison. Childhood in the prison, 14 years old, and it's 2024 almost come into we are in 2024, almost near to 2024, and this boy hasn't been released yet. And actually, I've been following his case. I almost every time follow his case whenever there is any hearing. So recently, when there was hearing, this Ahmed Manasra, he asked his lawyer if committing suicide was permissible in Islam. Subhanallah. Ya Rab. And you see, they just arrest on basis of suspicion, and they leave them after torturing them psychologically, physically, and most of the people who come out of the prison are psychologically gone. Physically, of course, even though they are there physically, they are mentally completely unstable. They don't know what's happening. And this was a man who was in prison for almost 9 years. Then they said that he was innocent and they left him. Subhanallah. 9 years of imprisonment for no reason. For no reason. Ya Rab. Only reason is that they are Palestinians and Allah tests them. There are so many cases, dear sisters, so many cases. I think days won't be sufficient if we talk about the plight of Palestinians. And especially in Israeli prison, the condition is worst. They treat worse than animals. Of course, today there are so many animal rights, but the problem is there are no human rights, especially in Palestine. Yeah, Rab. May Allah make it easy for them. May Allah make it really easy for them. Just a second. Just a second. Can someone please continue? I'm just a second. I'm feeling really giddy. I'm so sorry. I wasn't well today. Just give me 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Take your time, inshallah. We'll pause it.
Yes, please, sister, just pause for 5 minutes. Okay. So next slide is that. Can you see their illegal settlements been built on the land of Palestine? Whilst Palestinians have no right to travel there or even to build their own settlements, because the Zionists have completely destroyed their economy, everything. They destroyed the Palestinians, their economy, everything. So that is why today there's unemployment, poverty, everything. And West Bank, if you see West Bank and Israel, like cities like Tel Aviv and all, you will find a major difference. Palestine, the West Bank is like very underdeveloped, and cities like Tel Aviv are just like the modern Europe. It's just like modern Europe. Uh, so talking about checkpoints, this is something very big problem for Palestinians. Palestinians have to go through these checkpoints every day, literally every day. And do you think this checkpoint is for them to travel to Israel? No. This checkpoint is for them to travel to cities inside Palestine. Inside Palestine. And even now we are talking, even now we are taking this session, there are many thousands of Palestinians standing in checkpoints. Yeah, Rab, may Allah ease them. Recently, one of brothers from one of a, br- one brother from Palestine, he said that when the Israeli minister referred to them as human animals, That was not something shocking for them, because that is how they've been treated from past so many years. Like you see, and can you see the soldiers? They just, even though the Palestinians are standing in line, it doesn't, for them it doesn't make sense, because their plan is something different. Their plan is completely different. And you see, having kids, the the lecturers who want to go to their office, they have to stand in queues, they have to stand in lines. Yeah, Allah, these are the sufferings they go through on a daily basis. Imagine, on a daily basis. Like, sometimes when we travel abroad and when we have to stand in airports, we feel so exhausted. But here, this is their daily life. This is how they are being treated in their own land. So, when Jews, when they've come, taken up the land, and or their migration, if we go back to their migration, we wouldn't have any problem if they would have ruled this land with justice. But that Israel is a apartheid state. It will never allow Palestinians its equal rights. Forget about equal rights. It wouldn't allow Palestinians the basic rights as well. They want completely, they completely want to get away with the Palestinians. That is why they push really hard to. In fact, I guess they themselves are worried that why are they not able to get away with Palestinians, but they will remain, because there are a lot of hadiths that say that there is a hadith, specifically there's a hadith where Rasulullah said that there will be a group. So inshallah, I have that hadith with the number. Inshallah, I'll talk when I present the hadith. So this is checkpoints, and these are few problems. So you see, this lady is in pain, and she is still interrogated. They don't allow even the pregnant women, even if they are in pain, it doesn't matter to them. They are stopping and they are checking if they have if she is if she has a permit, or if she is allowed to travel in this road. Yeah, Allah. They even stop the ambulance. Look at their humanity. They even stop the ambulance. And I forgot to share one story with you. A woman, she was a pregnant woman. She was arrested on basis of suspicion, just on basis of just on basis of suspicion. And yeah, Allah, it was her due time. It was her time to deliver. They didn't let her out. They didn't give her bail. They didn't let her out. She had to deliver inside the Israeli jails, and the baby was given to her family, but they still continued keeping her inside the prison. Can we imagine? After the delivery, after giving birth to a child, women need so much of care, but she was thrown in prison. This is what it's horrible. The condition of Palestinians is something that it is only Allah, our Rabb, who can ease them their sufferings. Yeah, and this, talking about apartheid wall, this is a big problem for them. Really big problem for them. If I can just use this. See, like you can see this wall, and this side, for example, if there are two brothers residing on opposite side, if this is his house, if one brother resides here and if the other brother resides here, then they will, if there is any function, family function, or even funeral, then they will have to travel all over this wall. They will have to pass all over this apartheid wall for 2 to 3 years 3 hours, and then come to the brother's house. So can you see, like, because this wall was built recently. It was built, I mean, after the Israelis came, but Palestinians were living from a long time, right? So now, even if the family members were residing on opposite, they are divided by the apartheid wall. And this is one more image of the apartheid wall. And this is where they see, I mean, this is a camera as well as a gun, where if they see anyone not abiding by their false laws and rules, they can shoot anyone anytime with the help of this equipment. And now this is image of Hebron al Khalil. which is very important for them. Like I said that Ibrahim alayhi salam, his sons Isaac alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam, they resided in Hebron, right? So for them, Hebron is like very important, and that is why the Muslims who live in Hebron, they have made their life really miserable. And they have divided Hebron into two parts: Hebron 1, Hebron 2. Hebron in Arabic we call it as Al Qalil. So here there are roads specifically for Jews, where only Jews can walk on those roads, and roads specifically for Palestinian people. Isn't this apartheid? Israel is apartheid, no doubt on it. So now this is something. See, you see, our Muslims are offering salah outside Masjid al-Aqsa. Why? Because they are not given access to enter Masjid al-Aqsa. So today, according to Google and according to the world, Masjid al-Aqsa is in hands of Muslims. Masjid al-Aqsa's keys are with the Jordanian king, Hashemite king, right? But do you really think Masjid al-Aqsa is in the control of Muslims? If it was, then why are the Muslims praying outside? This was Jummah Salah, and this is recent picture or after October 7th. They are praying outside, and this is not something new. This didn't happen after October 7th, but this is this is something that goes on. Whenever they are in good mood, they allow Muslims to get into the masjid, into the sanctuary of Masjid al-Aqsa. But whenever they don't feel like, they just don't feel like, they don't give access to Muslims whatsoever. And sometimes they don't even let them pray on the roads peacefully. They throw tear gases at them, start shooting, and do whatnot. So this is the condition of Muslims in Palestine and near to Masjid al-Aqsa, whilst the settlers are enjoying in the blessed sanctuary of Masjid al-Aqsa. They enjoy. Whilst the Muslimin who have the right over Masjid al-Aqsa are praying outside on the roads. Sometimes not even allowed to pray on the roads. Okay, so these were few problems that were faced by people of West Bank. Now talking about the problems faced by people of Gaza, then I think the world is witnessing, right? We all are witnessing what they are going through. 2.3, like if we start off with the problems before war, I'm not talking after October 7th, I'm talking about things before October 7th, before the war began. 2.3 million population. Okay, 2.3. It's the world's third most populated place. Then 60% of refugees who came from where? From the so-called Israel. These people, the Gazans, where they used to live there. And when the Israel was formed, they were thrown. They were forced to live in a small strip called Gaza Strip. Then unemployment, poverty, lack of safe drinking water, electricity cut. And during the war, when we saw there was no power, there was no electricity, they were facing problem with the water. You see, they didn't complain very much because they are used to this kind of life. They are used to this lifestyle. This was their problem even before the war. Okay. So if you can see these images, they are very, I think no, these images are insufficient. I think the world has witnessed the atrocities and everything committed against the people of Gaza. So uh, actually, in 2005, after there was a treaty that was signed. So after that treaty, the Israeli occupation forces, they withdrew their troops from Gaza. So when I said that people of West Bank have to encounter the IOF army on a daily basis, that was not the case with Gaza, because after 2005 till just few days ago, the army wouldn't go inside the Gaza Strip. So since they couldn't go physically to torture them, what they used to do was they used the worst tool against them, that was the bombardments and the airstrikes. But now the situation is different. Now they have even gone into Gaza physically, and they are using bombardments as well. They are using both the tactics now. So I think I won't talk much about Gaza because I think everyone have seen what's happening in Gaza. Okay. Yes, but I just want to add this hadith. It was narrated that Abu Darda said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whilst I was sleeping, I saw the pillar of the book being taken from beneath my head, and I thought that it was being taken away. So I followed it with my gaze, and it was taken to Asham. Verily, when tribulations come, faith will be in Asham. Faith will be in Ashab. This is narrated by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, and it's a Sahih hadith. It has some. So you see, we see when people of Gaza are being bombed, when they are being killed, when they are being massacred, all they have to say is Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. And we really can't imagine being in their shoes. Really cannot. But they saying Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil in that situation, then this I can only recall of this hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when trials come, faith is in a sham, and it verily is. And I'm sure most of the people are unaware of this hadith. Okay, so if you see, there were six major wars in 16 years. So this war is not something new. It's been happening. If you see in 2008, 2009, 23 days. But what is different about this war, that's from after October 7, this war is, it's destroyed most of the things, and this war has exceeded 51 days. Because the latest war that was, that continued for more days was in 2014. It continued for 51 days, but we have crossed 51 days. We have crossed 70 days this time. So this is something war in latest history that is going on for so long. So so if there's a boy who was born, I mean, who is 16 years old, then probably he's seen six wars in his lifetime. So this is the life of the Palestinians, the people of the people of Gaza. So talking about Gaza, then since 2007, it has been under severe siege. Israel doesn't allow medicine, food, fuel, doesn't allow anything to go into Gaza. It controls the sea, it controls the air. Like they had airport. The Gazans had one airport which Israel bombed long ago, and it's not functional now. And the only open place for them is the Rafah border. That comes to the side of Egypt. But again, to be very honest, Egypt works with Israel, and they don't open it unless they take permission from Israel. Okay, now talking about what can I do. Then general level, we can do dua, charity, protest, spread the word actively, and boycott the products as much as possible. Teach our kids the reality, the accurate history, and on personal level, connection stronger to Allah. We need to turn back to Allah. We really need to turn back to Allah. This is high time. This is high time, my sisters. If not now, then when? Isn't it time to take our religious obligations into consideration? May Allah make it easy for us. Then we need to read tahajjud as much as possible. And I think that Palestinian plight has been ignored from past 75 years. But Alhamdulillah, lately, I think most of us are able to connect with them on a personal level. And it's my personal advice that if someone really wants to help Palestinian cause, then we need to fight on behalf of them with an intellectual sword, with giving our contribution in terms of literature, so that the truth is shown visibly with credible sources to the world. We need to learn the truth, and we need to spread the truth, especially the accurate history. So I think with this we can, yes, I want to add this hadith now. Victory, we must be thinking, right? What is happening? Why is this happening? Why is this still going on? The kids are killed brutally, and the whole messed up thing, whole messed up things that are happening in Gaza. May Allah make it really easy for them and for us as well. So we might have a question that why victory is being delayed, but Allah is Al Adl. He is very just. So for us, for the believers, Jannah is guaranteed. But for them, for the oppressors, we know, right, what their end is. It is going to be in hellfire. So Allah allots them some time so that at least they can enjoy in this life because they have no share in the hereafter. So, like Rasulullah said, the state of a believer is really good. We have benefit in everything. Even if we are in hardship, we have benefit. We do have benefits. May Allah, I think we really need to thank Allah, our Rabb, that we were born as Muslims, or we are Muslims, and may Allah strengthen our iman. So victory has been promised sooner or later. And there's a hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the last hour would not come unless the Muslims will fight against the Jews, and the Muslims would kill them until the Jews would hide themselves behind a stone or a tree, and stone or a tree would say, "Ya Abdullah, O Muslim, the servant of Allah, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him." But except for the tree of Garkat, that would not say, for it is the tree of Jews. This is in Sahih Muslim, and there's hadith, similar hadith in Sahih Bukhari as well. So victory has been promised. And when the Jews, when they say that when they say that Islam is the religion of violence, you see what kind of hadiths you have, like you are going to kill Jews. So I don't think so now they have the mouth, I mean, now I don't think so they can say anything, because we have seen the worst. Islam is definitely the religion of peace, but what is happening now? Do we see how badly they are killing the people in Gaza? Do we see all of this? So so why is this hadith strange for the people? Why hadith like this become, very strange? And why suddenly when hadith such things come up from Islam, they say Islam is a religion of violence. But no, do you now realize this hadith is the answer for what is happening now? Subhanallah. Islam Islam is haq. Islam is haq. And the sayings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is haq. It is going to come true. Victory has been promised with or without us. Definitely no doubt on it. But it is just that what are we doing? Because I'm sure, like, we need to contribute, right? Even though we don't see it even we don't see the victory in our lifetime, what is important is that we need to plant some seeds so that we will also be rewarded, and we will also be a part of this noble cause, because this is something that's not going to end here. Like I said, there are so many events that are going to take place in this land, so we are heading towards the end of the times. And what is important is, maybe we wouldn't be able to see the victory or the success, but it is important for us to be on the right side of the history, and to sow the seeds and pass away from this world. May Allah make it really easy for us. And inshallah, I think I'll just end here. If anyone of you has any question, can inshallah ask. Jazakallah khair for your time, for your patience. And sorry, I wasn't well today, so I had to pause for some time in between. Jazakallah khair.
May Allah grant you complete shifa, Sister Saima. Mama Barak, the session was such an eye opener, and
Hmm.
really no words to express my feelings. Still, you can unmute yourself and you can ask any doubt if you have, or share your feedback.
Anyone has any doubts, even from yesterday's session, then inshallah.
I guess it's all clear for them. Inshallah, then we
Alhamdulillah.
can conclude. And rest we
Inshallah.
can continue in the chats, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, we have WhatsApp group, so inshallah we can also clarify there if there are any doubts. Jazakallah khair, Sister Asya, and the entire team of Ikra Academy. May Allah bless you all. May Allah reward you all immensely.
Amen.
Jazakallah khair.
Amen, ya Rabbi.
May Allah
Amen.
reward us. May Allah accept it from us, whatever little we are doing for His sake, inshallah. I think we can end. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خيرا.
سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته sisters. Inshallah on 27th and 28th we are having the same session in Urdu. If you want you can invite your friends and family inshallah. I'll share the flyer and the link to the registration form inshallah on the group.
إن شاء الله.